The beast in the arena, the sun above Zarkor Prime, was red and cruel. Heat poured down like fire on the steel sands of the battle arena. Crowds filled the giant stadium, shouting, stomping, and cheering as drums pounded in the background. Alien, eyes glowed from every corner. Warriors from across the galaxy had come to watch blood spill today. In the center of the arena stood Vraxa, the undefeated champion. She was 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin marked by old scars. Her long black hair was tied back with bone rings, and her eyes burned like yellow fire. She raised her massive axe above her head and roared. The crowd roared with her. She had crushed more than 40 opponents in this arena, and today she expected the same. "Bring me the insect," Vraxa shouted. "Bring me the human." A gate on the other side opened slowly. Out walked Sergeant Kendler. He looked small compared to her, just under 6 feet tall, lean but strong, wearing a plain marine uniform with armor pads and a scar across his cheek. He carried no axe, no giant weapon, only a combat knife on his belt and a calm look on his face. The crowd laughed. Some aliens even threw sand and fruit at him. They called him weak, soft, a joke. Vraxa tilted her head. "This is the best your people have?" Kendler didn't speak. He walked to the center of the arena and stood still. His eyes never left hers. The horn blew. The match had begun. Without waiting, Vraxa charged forward, her feet shaking the ground. She swung her axe like a storm. Kendler didn't move. The blade came down and hit him hard on the shoulder. He flew back and crashed into the sand. The crowd cheered. It was over already, they thought. But Kendler slowly got up. Dust clung to his uniform. Blood dripped from his shoulder. Still, he smiled. Vraxa frowned. "Why didn't you dodge?" she asked. Kendler wiped the blood from his lip. "Wanted to see how strong you are." The crowd fell quiet. Vraxa growled. "You want pain? I'll break every bone." She ran at him again, swinging harder and faster. This time, Kendler moved. He rolled, ducked, dodged. The axe missed every time. Then suddenly he grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into her eyes. While she blinked and roared in anger, he ran forward and slammed his elbow into her ribs. It wasn't a big hit, but it surprised her. For a moment, the champion looked stunned. Kendler stepped back, breathing fast. "You're strong," he said, "but strength isn't everything." Vraxa's teeth showed. "I will crush your skull, human." She came again. The ground trembled. Her shadow fell over him like a mountain. But Kendler didn't panic. He used her size against her. He ducked under her swing, grabbed her leg, and twisted. Her knee bent and she stumbled. The crowd gasped. Kendler jumped back, eyes focused. Vraxa stood up, slowly, eyes burning. "You are not like the others." "No," Kendler said. "I've fought in real wars. This is just sport." Flashbacks flickered in Kendler's mind. Burning cities, falling comrades, the smell of smoke and blood back on Earth. He had fought aliens. Before. But never one like her. Still, fear didn't touch him. Not today. The match continued. Minute after minute, Vraxa attacked with fury, but Kendler moved like water. He wasn't stronger. He was smarter, calmer, sharper. Each dodge made the crowd more silent. Each strike he blocked made Vraxa more angry and more desperate. Finally, she stood still, breathing hard. Her axe hung low. Kendler didn't attack. He waited. "Why don't you finish me?" she shouted. "Because I don't need to," he answered. "I just needed you to see the truth," the crowd murmured. Something had changed. Vraxa stared at the human marine across from her, and for the first time, she wasn't sure she could win. Her grip tightened. The horn blew again. End of round 1. Guards stepped in to separate them for a rest. As they backed away, Vraxa looked at Kendler not with hate, but with curiosity, and deep down, for the first time in her life, with fear. The crack in her pride, Vraxa sat on a stone bench behind the arena gate. Her chest rose and fell heavily. Her axe leaned beside her, stained with fresh blood. Her eyes stared at the sand. She was not used to this feeling, not fear, not pain. Something worse, doubt. On the other side, Sergeant Kendler sat quietly, wrapping a cloth around his bleeding shoulder. Medic offered him something, but he shook his head. He didn't need healing, not yet, not until the job was done. Above them, the crowd roared for round 2. They didn't know what to think anymore. The human was still alive, and the champion had stumbled. In Vraxa's mind, voices from her past whispered, "Never fall. Never bow. Never let weakness show." Those were the laws of the pit, the training pits of Zarkor Prime, where children were raised not by love, but by violence. She was the strongest. She always had been. Her father, the pitmaster, had broken her, bones to make her tough, had locked her in darkness to make her fearless. And it had worked. Until today. The horn blew. The gates opened again. Vraxa walked out slowly, no longer smiling, no longer mocking. Kenlor followed, limping slightly. His hand rested on the hilt of his combat knife. He looked around the arena and then back at her. "Ready to end it? This time," Vraxa said. "I won't hold back." Kenlor nodded. "You didn't hold back the first time." The second round began. Vraxa charged, her axe spinning. But this time, Kenlor didn't move away. He ran forward, sliding under. Her blow and slammed his shoulder into her gut. She stumbled back but didn't fall. She roared and brought the axe down. Kenlor grabbed her arm and redirected the swing. The blade hit the ground with a loud clang. He kicked her in the knee and jumped back. Vraxa's hands shook. How was this human? This small, tired human, making her miss? "You're used to fear," Kenlor said, circling her. "Your enemies freeze, beg, cry." "Yes," she shouted. "That's what they're supposed to do. But not me." She growled and spun with fury, swinging the axe in a wide arc. Kenlor ducked and rolled away. Sand flew into the air. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, panting. "Because someone has to show you there's more than fear," he said. "I fight not to win. I fight to wake you up." His words hit harder than any punch. Vraxa lunged again. This time Kenlor took the hit. Her fist smashed into his side and he hit the ground. Blood sprayed from his mouth. The crowd cheered. Some even stood up. Vraxa walked closer, raising her axe. "This is the end." Kenlor looked up. Even with pain in his eyes, he smiled again. "Go ahead," he whispered. "Show them who you are." Her arms trembled. She saw the wound on his side. She saw the sand soaked with his blood. She remembered being 6 years old, her first match in the pit. Her opponent had been a friend, but she broke that friend's arm because her father told her to. Her axe dropped to her side. Kenlor slowly stood up, swaying. "Why didn't you finish me?" he asked. She didn't answer. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed across the arena. "This fight is dishonor. Finish him, champion, or face exile." It was Lord Hernuk, the arena master. Vraxa looked up at the tower. Her heart pounded. She could not disobey. No one ever had. Exile meant death. Kenlor saw her fear, and for the first time, he understood. She wasn't evil. She was trapped. "You don't have to do what they say," he said. "You can break their rules." "You don't understand," she whispered. "This is my life. Then take it back." Vraxa looked at her axe. Then she looked at her hand and then at him. She dropped the axe to the sand. Gasps filled the arena. Even Lord Hernuk stood in shock. "What are you doing?" he shouted. Vraxa turned to him and spoke clearly. "I will not kill the only warrior who fought with heart." The crowd began to shout, some with anger, some with awe. Kenlor stood beside her now. 2 enemies, 2 fighters, but somehow, not alone anymore. As guards rushed toward them, Vraxa whispered, "I broke every warrior in this arena, but you broke something deeper," Kenlor replied. "Your chains." The crowd had never seen anything like it, and neither had the galaxy. The turning of the tide. The arena was no longer cheering. It was holding its breath. Vraxa stood in the center of the blood-stained sand with her axe dropped beside her. Sergeant Kendler stood next to her, shoulders low, one hand pressed on his bleeding ribs. Between them and the edge of the arena, 6 armored guards rushed forward, weapons drawn. Their orders were clear. End this shameful match, take down the dishonored gladiator and crush the human who had dared to stand tall. Stay behind me, Vraxa said. Kendler gave a tired smile. I think we're past that. The first 2 guards reached them. They didn't speak. No warnings. Just cold metal and death in their eyes. One swung a plasma blade at Kendler's neck, but the Marine ducked, grabbed the attacker's arm, and twisted it hard until the blade flew from his grip. In one clean move, Kendler knocked him out with the hilt of his own weapon. Vraxa let out a deep, angry roar. She grabbed the second guard by the chest and threw him across the arena like a rag. His armor sparked as he hit the ground, motionless. More guards came. The crowd started shouting again, but this time not in mockery. Confusion. Fear. Some even cheered. Others chanted her name, not as a champion, but as a rebel. Kendler stood back to back with her now, breathing heavily. This reminds me of a fight on Helix 9, he said. Did you win that one too? She asked, blocking a strike and punching the enemy in the face. Barely, he muttered. I had help. Together, they moved like they had trained for years. Kendler was fast and precise, dodging and striking when it mattered. Vraxa was raw, power, breaking shields, throwing enemies like stones. Each time they stood their ground, the arena changed. The people watching weren't seeing a human and an alien anymore. They were seeing something new, a bond that wasn't supposed to exist. Enough! Lord Hernock's voice echoed from the high tower. Kill them both! The gates on the far end slammed open, and then he stepped out. Korgal the Enforcer, 10 feet tall, plated in golden armor, carrying a double-sided hammer that had ended dozens of lives. Even Vraxa looked uneasy. He's not a guard, she said softly. He's the arena's last punishment. Kendler coughed blood, still standing. You know him? He trained me, she whispered. Korgal marched forward slowly. His footsteps felt like thunder. His black eyes locked on Vraxa first, then shifted to the human. He raised his hammer. Vraxa stepped forward. This is my fight. Kendler didn't move. Korgal spoke for the first time. You've shamed the arena, Vraxa. The champion dies by my hand. She stood tall. Then do it. I'm not yours anymore. The hammer came down fast, but it didn't hit her. Kendler tackled her to the side just in time. The hammer cracked the sand where she had stood, sending shockwaves across the floor. You idiot, she growled at Kendler. Yeah, he said, but I'm your idiot now. They both stood again. This time they didn't wait. They attacked Korgal together. Kendler went low, cutting at his legs. Vraxa aimed for his head. Their blows landed, but the Enforcer didn't fall. He swung the hammer again and hit Kendler in the chest. The Marine flew backward, hitting the arena wall with a sickening sound. Vraxa screamed and charged. The fight was no longer about rules, no longer about survival. It was personal. Korgal fought like a monster, but Vraxa was no longer just a gladiator. Her rage was focused. Her strikes were faster. She remembered every beating, every order, every scar this man gave her in training, and she wasn't that girl anymore. As Korgal raised his hammer for a final blow, Kendler, coughing blood, pulled something from his belt. A grenade. He tossed it under Korgal's feet. Boom! The blast sent dust flying. Korgal staggered, and Vraxa leapt. With a scream that shook the crowd, she jumped and drove her elbow straight into his head. His helmet cracked. He fell to his knees. She grabbed his hammer and slammed it into the ground beside him. I will not kill you, she said, but your time here is over. Silence. Then, cheers. Louder than anything the arena had ever heard. She turned and walked to Kendler. He was barely conscious. Did we win? He asked. You tell me, she said, helping him up. As they stood together, bloodied, broken, but not beaten, something strange happened. Vraxa fell to one knee, not from pain but from choice. I mocked you, she said. But now, I see the truth. Kendler reached out and pulled her up. No more kneeling, he said. We walk forward together, and somewhere deep in the crowd, for the first time in arena history, someone whispered the word, freedom. Echoes from her past, the night, after the fight was cold, not because of the air, it was always hot on Zarkor Prime, but because of what came next. Vraxa and Kendler were locked in a holding chamber deep beneath the arena. Thick metal walls, no windows, just silence and shadows. They sat on opposite sides of the cell. Both were bruised and bloodied, but both were awake. Kendler pressed his back against the wall, breathing shallow. Every movement hurt. His ribs were cracked and the pain in his chest throbbed with every heartbeat. Vraxa sat still, staring at the floor. She hadn't spoken since they were thrown in here. Her axe had been taken, her rank stripped. But it wasn't the loss of title that weighed on her. It was something deeper, something older. You didn't have to save me, she said finally. Her voice low and empty. Kendler looked up. Yes, I did. I would have been fine, she added, eyes still down. No, he said quietly. You would have let him kill you. She didn't deny it. Kendler's voice was softer now. Why? Vraxa looked up, and for the first time, there was no anger in her face, only sadness, because that's what I was made for. She said, to fight, to win, or to die, nothing else. Kendler watched her closely. He could see it now. Not the champion, not the beast, but the broken girl behind the armor. She stood up and walked to the wall, placing her hand on the cold surface. She closed her eyes. Memories rose like ghosts. I was taken when I was 4, she whispered. My parents sold me. Said I was born with too much muscle, not enough beauty. I was sent to the pits. Kendler didn't interrupt. They starved us. Beat us. Made us fight each other for food. If you cried, they broke your teeth. If you begged, they took your tongue. Her voice cracked. She kept going. I didn't cry. Not once. Not even when my friend died in my arms. She was only 5. Kendler's throat tightened. Vraxa turned to him, her voice shaking. Every time I won, they praised me. Gave me more food, more training, more pain. But I started to like it. The fighting. The power. It made the pain stop. She paused. But then you came. And you fought without hate, without anger. I didn't understand it. Kendler nodded slowly. I didn't come to fight you. I came to show them who we really are. Vraxa gave a weak laugh. And who are we? Kendler looked her in the eyes. We are survivors, not monsters. A silence fell between them. Above, the crowd had gone home. The arena was quiet, but the galaxy had already seen everything. News had spread beyond the walls of Zarkor Prime. Across systems, people were talking about the human who didn't kneel and the alien champion who chose mercy. They'll execute us, she said finally. They'll call us traitors. Maybe, Kendler replied. But maybe, not yet. Suddenly, a loud metallic clank echoed through the chamber. The cell door slid open. A short alien figure entered. Thin, pale, dressed in a dark hood. A council mark glowed on her chest. A member of the Interstellar Court. Stand, she said coldly. Kendler groaned as he pushed himself up. Vraxa stayed still. The court has seen your battle, the councilwoman said. And we have questions. Questions? Kendler muttered. About what? About why an enemy of the Empire risked his life to save one of its tools, she said. And why that tool disobeyed her masters. Vraxa growled low. The councilwoman stepped closer. If this is an alliance, we need to understand it. If it's a threat, we will destroy it. Kendler raised his head. We're not a threat. We're proof. Proof that your system is broken. Vraxa added, and we're the first crack. The woman stared at them, her eyes sharp, calculating. Then to their surprise, she smiled. Good, she said. Let's see how deep the crack can go. Before they could reply, soldiers entered, not to drag them but to escort them. The galaxy has changed, the councilwoman said, and you two may be the spark that lights it. As they were led away, Vraxa glanced at Kendler. Do you think we're really free now? Kendler gave a half smile. I think freedom isn't given, it's taken, one fight at a time. And as they walked toward the unknown, side by side, the echoes of their past followed them. But for the first time in their lives, so did hope. The fall of the champion, the ship carrying them away from Zarkor Prime, was small, old, and unmarked. It flew silently through black space, heading toward a remote council outpost on the edge of neutral territory. Inside, Sergeant Kendler sat strapped into a seat, eyes half closed, body aching. His wounds had been wrapped, but pain still lived in every breath. Vraxa stood by a narrow window, arms crossed, her eyes locked on the stars. She had never left Zarkor Prime. Not really. She had only known cages, sand, and blood. Now it was behind her. But the silence in her chest wasn't peace, it was something unfamiliar. Something hollow. The councilwoman from earlier, named Silen, entered the cabin and sat across from Kendler. She carried a thin data slate and wore an unreadable expression. The galaxy is watching you both, Silen said. Some see you as rebels, others as heroes. Kendler gave a tired smirk. And you? I see opportunity, she answered. Vraxa turned from the window. What do you want from us? Silen raised her head. We want you to speak, to stand before the council and tell your story. We want to show them that even the strongest chain can break. Kendler narrowed his eyes. And if we say no, then the arena will be reopened, with new champions, new weapons, and your story will fade into silence. The choice was clear. They weren't just survivors now. They were symbols, but symbols came with enemies. Before they could answer, an alarm began to blare across the ship. Red lights flashed. What's happening? Vraxa asked, grabbing her belt. A pilot's voice echoed through the speaker. Incoming strike vessel, unidentified. They're jamming communications and arming weapons. Kendler cursed under his breath. We're being hunted. Silen stood. We need to get to the escape pods. Vraxa's blood was already rushing. Her fingers curled into fists. No, we're not running. Not again. You can't fight a ship, Silen said. I don't need to fight a ship, Vraxa replied. I just need to stop whoever's on it. Kendler pulled himself up. We fight. Together. Minutes later, the enemy vessel latched onto their ship. A sharp metal sound echoed like teeth biting into bone. The lights flickered. Then the walls shook. They came in fast. A private army. Black-armored mercenaries with no banners. Hired killers. The kind sent to erase history. Vraxa let out a deep roar and met them at the door. The first attacker was thrown backward before he could aim. She grabbed his weapon and used it to crush the second one's helmet. Kendler moved slower, but smarter. He used the corridors to trap enemies, cut their lines of sight, and strike from the shadows. His knife flashed in the red light, clean and sharp. Gunfire filled the halls. Silen took cover, watching in disbelief as the two warriors, one human, one alien, fought like they were born to do it together. They're not soldiers, Silen whispered. They're a storm. In the heart of the ship, the final wave of mercenaries surrounded them. Vraxa bled from her arm. Kendler's shirt was soaked in red. But they stood side by side, breathing hard, eyes locked on the enemies ahead. You can still surrender, the enemy leader called out. Kendler grinned. After all this? Not a chance. Vraxa took one step forward. You came here to kill the champion. Her voice was cold. But the champion is already dead. The mercenaries looked at each other, confused. Then she dropped her old belt on the floor. I'm no longer their tool, no longer their trophy. I'm more than what they made me. She charged, screaming. Not just in rage, but in freedom. The fight was brutal, wild and final. When it was over, The ship's hallways were silent once more. Bodies lay across the floor. Smoke drifted in the air. Vraxa leaned against the wall, panting. Kendler sat down beside her, holding his ribs. "You, all right?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, she said, "The champion is gone." Kendler nodded. "Good. Because now, you get to decide who you want to be." Silence stepped out slowly from her hiding spot. "The council will hear of this. They can't ignore you now, not after this." Vraxa stood tall, face hard, but eyes softer than before. "I don't care if they listen," she said. "I care if others like me hear." "Hear what?" Ceylin asked. Vraxa looked toward the stars. "That the cage is breakable." As their ship limped through the dark sky, carrying a marine with broken bones and an ex-champion with a broken past, the galaxy began to whisper their names. Not as monsters, not as traitors, but as the first cracks in an empire built on chains. Mercy in the sand, the council chamber was carved into the cliffs of a red desert moon, far from the empire's core systems. White stone pillars rose high into the sky, and banners from 100 worlds waved in the dry wind. Soldiers, diplomats, and curious watchers filled the circular court, waiting for the two warriors who had shaken the known systems. Inside, Vraxa stood before the council's raised platform. She wore no armor, no chains. Her scars were uncovered, her posture firm. Behind her, Kendler sat quietly, still weak from the last battle, but present. His chest was bandaged, and every breath reminded him of the cost they'd paid to reach this moment. The High Speaker, an old alien with pale blue skin and gold eyes, tapped his staff on the stone. "You stand here, Vraxa of Zarkor, once champion of the Blood Pits. Your actions broke sacred arena law, and yet the galaxy watched and many were moved." Vraxa said nothing. "Tell us," the speaker continued, "why did you betray your code? Why did you kneel before the human?" Vraxa looked up at him. Her voice was steady. "Because for the first time, I wasn't afraid." Gasps echoed around the room. She took a step forward. "They told us fear keeps us strong, but fear only keeps us obedient. I lived in chains, called it honor, and killed to earn my next breath." She turned to face the crowd. "But he..." She pointed to Kendler. "He didn't fight to survive. He fought to wake me up." Kendler slowly stood. His voice was weak but clear. "And she didn't kneel out of defeat. She chose mercy when she could have killed me." A counselor interrupted. "Mercy? From a Zarkorian pit beast?" Vraxa's head turned sharply. "Say that again." The room fell silent. "What did you call me?" she asked. The counselor shifted uncomfortably. "I meant, it's just what you're known as." Vraxa stepped forward. "Then let me change what I'm known for." She turned to the speaker again. "Let others fight like we did. Not for blood, but for truth." The chamber buzzed. Some whispered in support. Others frowned in anger. Ceylin, the shadowy council agent who had helped them escape, stood quietly near the back, watching with a sharp gaze. Then, a door at the back opened. A new figure entered. Tall, armored, marked with the Empire's crest. It was General Orvin, a war leader known for his cruelty. He marched forward without permission, and no one dared stop him. "This ends now," he growled. "This show, this weakness. The Empire will not bow to rebels." Kendler tensed. Vraxa stepped in front of him. "You dare interrupt the council?" the High Speaker asked. "I don't need permission to end a disease," the general said. "Those two are a virus. They made others question the order. Even now, gladiators refuse matches. They talk of choice, of rights. This human filth has infected our strength." He drew his blade. "I'll fix it." Kendler reached for his knife, but he was too slow. Vraxa moved like lightning. She blocked the general's strike with her arm. The blade cut deep, but she didn't flinch. Blood ran down her skin, but her eyes burned with clarity. "You want to fight?" she whispered. "Then you get one." The council chamber exploded in noise as the two giants clashed in front of stunned diplomats. Orvin struck with trained rage. Each blow aimed to kill, But Vraxa didn't fight like a pit beast anymore. She fought like someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. She dodged, countered, and with every move, the crowd saw something they had never seen before. A warrior fighting, not for herself, but for others like her. A loud crack filled the air as she caught the general's blade with her bare hands and snapped it in two. He stumbled back, stunned. She grabbed him by the collar, pulled him close and whispered, "Mercy is not weakness." Then she dropped him to his knees, but she didn't kill him. Instead, she turned to the council and dropped her own weapon beside his broken sword. "Now you've seen the truth," she said. "We don't need your cages, your rules, your wars." The High Speaker stood. "What would you have us do?" Kendler limped forward and spoke with effort. "Let them choose." "Choose? Freedom. Let the champions walk free. Let them decide their own path." The chamber was silent. Then one by one, voices began to rise. Freedom. Choice. Enough blood. Even silence stepped forward. "This is the moment. History bends. Choose carefully." The speaker raised his staff. "Then it is decided. The blood arenas are hereby suspended. An investigation into forced gladiator systems will begin across all sectors." Cheers erupted from parts of the chamber. Others walked out angry. But it didn't matter. Change had begun. As the crowd thinned and the sun set over the desert cliffs, Vraxa sat beside Kendler on the stone steps. She looked at her arm. Still bleeding. "That was stupid," he said, grinning. "But it worked," she replied. They both laughed, and for the first time in their lives, they laughed as free souls. The warrior's choice. 3 months had passed since the fight in the council chamber. Across the galaxy, things were changing. Some worlds had burned their arena banners. Others began releasing prisoners from forced gladiator camps. There were protests, rebellions, and whispers of a movement with two names at its heart, Vraxa and Kenlor. But peace had not followed. The Adr Empire was angry. The governors of Zarkor Prime called for blood. They sent bounty hunters, mercenaries, spies. Every day, news of another dead rebel reached the Edgeworlds. And deep in the shadows of space, a storm was growing. Vraxa and Kendler had disappeared. Some said they were hiding. Others said they were dead. But the truth was far more dangerous. They were preparing. In a hidden base beneath a broken moon called Thorax 7, a new group was gathering. Escaped warriors, broken champions, humans, aliens, former enemies, now brothers and sisters under one goal, to end the Blood Empire. In a stone hall lit by torchlight, Vraxa stood before them all. She was not dressed in armor. She wore cloth, soft and simple, and carried no weapon, but no one doubted her strength. She looked around the room, faces young and old, bruised and scared but burning with purpose. "You are not fighters," she began. "You are survivors." They listened in silence. They trained us to hurt, to destroy, to kneel, but we are not what they made us. Someone in the back shouted, "What are we then?" Vraxa smiled, but it was a hard smile, sharp and full of fire. "We are the echo of every broken bone. We are the answer to every scream in the pit. We are the storm they never saw coming." The crowd erupted in cheers. Kendler entered then, limping slightly, carrying a rolled-up map. "We have news," he said, spreading it out on the table. "The Empire is building a new arena, bigger than anything before. They call it the Forge. It's not just for sport anymore. They plan to use it to train war beasts, super gladiators, soldiers made to conquer entire planets." He looked up. "They're building it on Zarkor Prime." Vraxa's face turned to stone. "Then we end it," she said. "We?" someone asked. "You want to go back to the place where you were chained?" "No," she replied. "I want to return as the one holding the key." They made their plan in silence. The Forge was not just a symbol. It was the heart of the Empire's control. If they destroyed it, they wouldn't just break a building. They'd break a lie. But it was a suicide mission. Kenlor knew that. So did Vraxa, yet they still moved forward. Days later, as the sun rose over Zarkor Prime, something strange happened. The arena gates didn't open to cheers, they opened to explosions. Vraxa's fighters stormed the outer walls while Kenlor led the infiltration through the tunnels he had memorized during his imprisonment. Every path was guarded, every corridor filled with smoke and danger, but they kept moving. Vraxa broke through the gates with nothing but her fists. She tore down the Empire's banner and threw it into the fire. Inside, she found the new gladiators. Young ones, scared, brainwashed. You don't have to fight, she told them. Some threw down their weapons, others didn't believe her, but one by one they began to question. Kenlor reached the control chamber. Alarms were blaring. He fought through 2 guards before reaching the power core. Behind him a voice spoke. You should have died in the pit. It was Orvan, the general she had defeated once before. He stood with a new arm, made of steel and eyes full of rage. You ruined the Empire's plan, he hissed. But today it ends. He swung with lightning speed, striking Kenlor across the face. Kenlor fell, coughing blood. Orvan raised his blade, and then stopped. A massive hand had caught his wrist. Vraxa. She had found him. And she didn't smile. She didn't roar, she simply said, You forgot something. What? Orvan sneered. Champions rise, and then she broke his arm. The battle ended quickly after that. The forge burned for 3 days, and the Empire, once so sure of its control, went silent. Not destroyed, but shaken. At the edge of the flames, Vraxa and Kenlor sat beside a crater. They were exhausted, bruised, alive. Vraxa looked at the sky. What now? She asked. Kenlor leaned back. Now, we give others the choice you never had. Vraxa nodded. Then slowly, she stood and raised, her hand toward the gathered survivors behind them. This was never about me, she shouted, never about him. It was about you. All of you. She turned to the crowd, voice louder now. You can choose to fight, or to build, to lead or to heal, but whatever you do, make it yours. The wind carried her voice across the ruins of the forge, across the deserts of Zarkor Prime, and across the stars. And somewhere, in a forgotten prison on another planet, a young girl heard the broadcast. She looked up through the bars, a tear running down her cheek, and she whispered, Vraxa. That day a warrior didn't just break chains, she changed a galaxy. Forever.